The stone bull court stretches before us like an ancient theater of death. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the playing field, where worn limestone walls still bear the stains of centuries-old bloodshed. In the silence, one can almost hear the echoing chants of spectators, the rhythmic bounce of the heavy rubber ball, and the final gasps of those whose sporting defeat meant a swift journey to the afterlife. This is no ordinary athletic arena. It is the stage where sport and sacrifice merged in a spectacle that defined Mesoamerican civilization for over 3 millennia. The year is 1458 AD. Tenochtitlan's Grand Bull Court teems with spectators from all social classes. The air vibrates with tension as 2 teams of players, their bodies adorned with elaborate protective gear and ritual paint, battle in what might be their final game. For the captain of the losing team, the rubber ball weighing up to 8 pounds represents not just the challenge of the moment, but potentially the weight of his mortality. As the game concludes, the victorious team's captain raises his arms in triumph. The defeated captain, a captured warrior from a rival city-state, knows what awaits him. Archaeological evidence from bull courts across Mesoamerica tells us what happens next. A scene so horrific, yet so normalized within these societies that Spanish conquistadors would later record their shock and revulsion in vivid detail. When I witnessed what followed their games, I could scarcely believe my eyes, wrote Friar Bernardino de Sahagún in his 16th century account. What to them was sacred ritual appeared to us as nothing less than murder disguised as ceremony. To comprehend how sport became intertwined with human sacrifice, we must shed our modern sensibilities and enter a worldview where the cosmos itself hungered for blood. The bull game was never just a game, explains Dr. Elena Martinez, archaeologist specializing in Mesoamerican ritual practices. It was a cosmic drama that replayed creation myths. The bull court represented the threshold between worlds, the balls symbolized celestial bodies, and the players became actors in a divine narrative where death was transformation, not termination. Recent excavations at El Tajín in Veracruz have revealed something previously undocumented: specialized drainage channels beneath certain bull courts that appear designed specifically to collect and channel sacrificial blood into underground chambers. These architectural features suggest the ritualistic importance of blood collection exceeded even what scholars previously understood. Perhaps most disturbing to modern sensibilities is the complex relationship Mesoamerican societies had with their ball players. Evidence suggests these weren't merely unfortunate victims, but highly trained athletes who understood the stakes of their profession. Isotope analysis of remains found at the Great Bull Court of Chichen Itza reveals something startling. Many players were not local, but brought from distant regions specifically for these ritual games. Their diet in the months preceding death showed they received preferential treatment, consuming protein-rich foods typically reserved for nobility. They lived as celebrities before potentially dying as sacrifices. We've discovered evidence that some players' handprints were preserved in temple walls, notes Dr. Carlos Vega of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Their names were recorded in hieroglyphic texts alongside royal lineages. This suggests that even sacrifice players achieved a form of immortality in the cultural memory. An obscure Maya glyph discovered in 2014 at the Tanina archaeological site provides rare insight into how players themselves viewed their role. Roughly translated, it reads, "The one who plays with his life ensures the sun will rise." This cryptic statement suggests players may have embraced their potential sacrifice as cosmically meaningful. The specific methods of sacrifice varied across regions and eras, but contained consistent elements that speak to their ritual importance. Unlike popularized notions of ripping out still-beating hearts, Evidence from many ball courts points to decapitation as the primary method of dispatch for losing players. At El Tajin, distinctive stone carvings known as yokes depict the moment of beheading with disturbing precision. The carvings show specialized obsidian blades designed specifically for ritual decapitation, artifacts of which have been recovered from several major ball courts. These weren't crude implements, explains forensic archaeologist Dr. Maria Herrera. The edges of these ceremonial knives were honed to a molecular level of sharpness that exceeds modern surgical steel. Death would have been nearly instantaneous. What happened after death reveals even more about the significance of these sacrifices. Analysis of skeletal remains from the Las Flores site in Guatemala shows evidence that skulls of sacrificed players were sometimes fashioned into masks worn by victorious opponents in subsequent games, a literal claiming of the defeated player's identity and power. Popular understanding often assumes only losing players faced sacrifice, but primary sources and archaeological evidence complicate this narrative. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiches Maya, suggests that in certain high-stakes ritual games, victors earned the privilege of sacrifice, their triumph proving them worthy messengers to the gods. In the most sacred context, it was victory, not defeat, that marked one for sacrifice, explains epigrapher Dr. Jonathan Foster. This inverts our assumptions about these games being merely contests to avoid death. In some cases, players competed explicitly for the honor of divine selection. Evidence from Copan supports this theory. Elaborate tombs containing the remains of decapitated individuals buried with championship regalia suggest these weren't losers, but champions whose victory earned them cosmic significance. When Spanish conquistadors encountered these practices, cultural collision was inevitable. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, a soldier in Hernán Cortés's expedition, wrote of his first viewing of a ball game and its aftermath. They played with such skill and agility that we were amazed. But when they dragged the defeated captain to the temple platform, we knew we witnessed devil worship in its most terrible form. The Spanish prohibition of the ball game and its associated sacrifices created an underground tradition that persisted in remote areas well into the colonial period. Hybrid versions emerged where Christian symbolism replaced indigenous cosmology, but the connection between athletic contest and spiritual consequence remained. Archaeological work continues to reveal new dimensions of these ancient practices. In 2021, ground-penetrating radar at the Monte Alban site in Oaxaca revealed previously undiscovered chambers beneath the ball court, where specialized ceramic vessels appear to have collected blood from the playing surface above. The vessels bear inscriptions referring to earth feeding and sky nourishment, reinforcing the cosmological significance of the sacrifices. While modern observers might fixate on the brutality of these practices, Mesoamerican philosophy viewed sacrifice not as loss, but as necessary transfer of life force. The Aztec concept of teotl, the sacred energy permeating all existence, required circulation through sacrifice to maintain cosmic balance. Their worldview wasn't centered on the individual, but on maintaining universal equilibrium, explains philosopher Dr. Isabel Quiñones. Death in the ball game wasn't seen as punishment, but as participation in the most fundamental cosmic process, the exchange of life energy. An obscure Mixtec codex discovered in a private collection in 2018 contains a surprising dialogue attributed to a player before his sacrifice. Today, I am a man. Tomorrow, I feed the cosmos. My blood becomes rain, my breath becomes wind. What greater purpose could one serve than to nourish the gods who nourish us all? The ancient Mesoamerican ball game represents a collision between athletic excellence and ritual sacrifice that challenges our fundamental assumptions about sport, spirituality, and the value of human life. In these societies, the boundary between game and religious ceremony dissolved entirely. The stone ball courts remain, silent witnesses to thousands of games where the bounce of a rubber ball determined who would live and who would die, where sport and sacrifice merged into a single cultural expression. The player's blood has long since returned to the earth, feeding the cosmos as they believed it would. And somewhere, in the dark soil beneath these ancient playing fields, the whispers of their final moments remain, reminding us that for 3,000 years, the most dangerous game in human history was played not for championships, but for the very survival of the world itself.